Welcome to World Pediatrics, Healing Beyond Borders, the official podcast of World Pediatrics. I'm Reese Williams, and I'm so excited to invite you into this space where stories of hope, healing, and transformation take center stage. Welcome back to Healing Beyond Borders. I'm your host, Reese Williams, and as World Pediatrics marks its 25th year of impact, we're spending this season reflecting on the people and the partnerships that have shaped not only our global work, but the care delivered right here at home in Richmond. Today's episode is made possible by Bon Air Artists Association in Richmond, Virginia, which is hosting its annual show benefiting World Pediatrics on March 14th and 15th at Independence Golf Club. Tickets and additional event information are available at bonairartists.com. Our guest today is Dr. David Lanning, pediatric surgeon and chief medical officer of the Children's Hospital at Richmond at VCU. Dr. Lanning has been a World Pediatrics medical volunteer since 2004. Over the past 2 decades, he's led surgical training teams across the Caribbean and Central America, helped establish long-standing pediatric surgery programs in Saint Vincent, Belize, and Honduras, and brought children to Richmond for complex care that couldn't have been completed in their home countries. And what makes Dr. Lanning's story especially powerful is how clearly it shows the two-way impact of global health work, how serving children abroad doesn't just change lives overseas, but shapes better doctors, stronger institutions, and more compassionate care here at home. So thank you for being with us. We greatly, greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Reese. Good morning.
Let's go back to the beginning. Let's just go chronological. You have been with World Pediatrics for 2 decades, over 2 decades now. What drew you to them, and what keeps you hooked?
Actually, John Ward, who is a pediatric neurosurgeon that was the medical director for many years at World Pediatrics, introduced me to the organization, and he suggested that I get connected, and they reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in seeing some charts about a patient or two, and said, okay, sure, and then did that, and then they said, well, maybe you could take a patient or two, okay, and then they kept reeling me in, and next thing you know, I'm going on mission trips, but I fell in love with the organization from the beginning. I was fortunate enough to do mission work in my fellowship when I was at Children's Hospital of Michigan. I went to Nicaragua and really got hooked there. And then when I moved back to Richmond to be on faculty at the Children's Hospital of Richmond in 2004, I did go on another trip with that organization, but it's just wasn't nearly as organized and I think as really effective as World Pediatrics was. It's called International Hospital for Children at the time.
Right.
But, and again, there are many people like John Ward who were just exceptionally committed and really providing exceptional care that got me hooked on the organization. And then I think I went on my first trip in maybe 2006 or so, and then just kept going from there. I mean, I think that's one of the things great about the organization is it just from top to bottom. It just really committed people doing amazing work, and it's really easy to get to be part of that team.
It's nice when it's smooth, and doing good is addictive, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. And being around like-minded people who really care about children, really care about providing care to children and families that otherwise would not get that care. And it really feeds off each other, and the staff is incredible. The volunteers, it's just such great energy and great work. It's really addictive, if you will, in a positive way.
I'm always astounded that the doctors have the bandwidth, just the not just the physical time, but energy to not only do it for a living and then make time and energy for these special cases as well.
Yeah. We mostly will take a vacation week or so and go on these trips. But it really is, even though it's work, it fills our tank, if you will. I mean, this is what we're, I think trained so many years to do. And I think it's just so much more meaningful knowing that if you weren't there, it wasn't going to get done. There just aren't options for these children, these families, and they're extremely appreciative, and so it's really rewarding.
That's got to feel so great. So that first trip that you took was to Saint Vincent and Grenadines as well.
That's right, correct.
What were your thoughts on sort of the care globally and how they were set up down there and the impact you were making?
Well, I think World Pediatrics has done a great job about identifying not only areas of need in the Caribbean and Central America, but also areas where we could have a long-standing impact. We've ensured that there's access to reasonable hospitals. There's people that are supportive in those areas. We've made connections with political leaders, hospital leadership, other providers in the region, and so forth. Because the idea is really to go there, but stay there and continue to go back and build on, all the incredible work that's been done by the people who founded the organization. And that's how you, I think, create substantive change is you partner with the people there and have long-term relationships. And the teams there locally know that the providers are coming back. They're going to get support, and that has resulted in these programs that are really super unique and provide exceptional care to so many children, not only from the immediate local area of these programs, but the region and bring kids in. For instance, in Saint Vincent, we have kids that come from all the surrounding islands to see us and to get surgical care. So it's been one of the great things about the organization is our long-term commitment to these regions.
That's amazing. I mean, that was actually a point I wanted to touch on was, of course, it's an individual case that gets you somewhere. But that's what I hear over and over and over from anybody who's involved with World Pediatrics is it's not a one and done at all.
Right.
This builds relationships and a ripple effect, and it keeps it going in both directions. The physicians here get to learn different skills there and how to adapt and how to improvise because certain things aren't available in other places. And it just makes you a stronger caretaker, a stronger surgeon.
Well, you're 100% right in that sometimes people will say, well, you're doing amazing work for children from afar. That's great. I want to support children from more locally or regionally in our country because there are need. There's no question there's need, but, you'd be hard pressed to find a child in the United States that didn't have fairly quick access to appropriate medical and surgical care. Whereas in these countries, they often don't have a pediatric surgeon for maybe even the entire country. And those that do, sometimes they don't have the experience, they don't have the exposure, and can't provide care to children that have complex surgical problems, or even moderately complex. People say, well, why can't they, go to the nearest town? Well, they don't have them there either. And again, sometimes they have to cross country lines to go to different areas, and often have to come with a lot of cash, which they don't have. And sometimes they'll have to have their whole communities rally to provide some support.
And they do, don't they?
They often do. Mm-hmm. But to your point, too, about when we go there and provide this care, often some of these surgical problems are very unique, very complex and difficult. But yet we, either they're locally or when we bring them to Richmond, provide this care. And we it builds our skill set, if you will, right? We have to work together with other surgeons and medical colleagues to say, how are we going to tackle this complex problem? And that experience, either there in their home countries or back in Richmond, is exceptionally helpful to grow our skill set. And so when we do see a one-time in 10 years surgical, really strange anomaly, we have a better idea how to not only take care of the problem, but work with our colleagues to create a solution for these children that come from the state, across the state, or in somewhere else in the country. And so it does have a major impact locally here in Richmond and across the Commonwealth too.
It's definitely been a theme in all of the episodes we've done at how grateful we are. I know I find that after whether I've talked to a physician or most of the time it's when I speak to patients, when the episodes are on patients, when we just realize how lucky we are to have the services that we have here.
Yes.
And so I absolutely love just hearing that over and over and over. That we use our resources to help others. Let's dig into that a little bit. How has it made you a better surgeon? And I think the phrase that came to mind for me was what is it? The enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of thing. But it's like if you have this case that's challenging and needs to be resolved and sometimes heartbreaking and hard, when everybody can rally together and unify for that, that's a beautiful thing. And so how has that helped shaped you individually as a physician?
Well, certainly, it's allowed me to really think outside the box with complex surgical problems and also with limited resources. Sometimes you arrive down there for a trip and a patient shows up and you have to do the best you can with what you have. And so it's there've been many situations like that, and really forces you to really be creative.
You become Dr. MacGyver. Just say it. Just say it.
A little bit. And you're right. We are exceptionally fortunate to have what we have in terms of our colleagues and the training we've had, and then the resources. Many times we'll go down to these countries and they just don't have the resources to, whether it's a CT scan or a ventilator or certain catheters, they just don't have them. Mm-hmm. So you have to be very creative in those environments.
You mentioned earlier cases that are anomalies, and I know that I think something that just fascinates the world are stories of conjoined twins and successful stories of being able to create independent lives for them. And I know you had a case. Let's explore that.
Sure.
Where were they located?
Well, it's quite a story for sure. They were from the Dominican Republic. Mom knew she was having twins, but did not know they were conjoined. No one knew. And then when they were delivered as such, unfortunately, the providers at the time told the mom, we'll take them home, but they're not going to survive. So she took the babies home, 2 little girls, and they were hungry. So
and where were they attached?
Conjoined at the lower chest and the abdomen. Mm-hmm. And they fed, and they were acting like otherwise normal babies, and they weren't dying. And so she reached out to the First Lady of the Dominican Republic, because she'd been known to be very supportive of women and children's causes, was a big supporter of the Children's Hospital there. And even though we didn't have pediatric general surgical teams from World Pediatrics going there, we had an extensive history of supporting their cardiac congenital heart program and cardiology, and so she knew we were a trusted partner. She reached out to us. They reached out to me, the leadership of World Pediatrics at the time, and I said, "Well, we'll gather information." And we reviewed all the information they had and decided to investigate further. So.
And how old were they when they had their surgery?
Well, fortunately, they were otherwise doing well. So we gathered some information that they had in the Dominican Republic, some films and so forth. We brought them up to Richmond about 9 months of age for imaging evaluations by myself and others, with the idea that they would then go back to the Dominican Republic, and we'd probably try to, after we created a plan, either offer separation in Richmond, or even I reached out to many other children's hospitals across the country that had experience with conjoined twins. I had an experience with a set in my fellowship in Michigan, Children's Hospital in Michigan, but not in Richmond. And so we gathered information, did a bunch of imaging, sent them back, and they were doing well. Wanted them to go a bit further, but establish a plan of what we thought would need to be done. And then I would reach out to other hospitals and say, this is what we found. This is what we think needs to be done. would you be interested in taking their care? And all, I don't know, 7 or 8 programs I reached out to said, that sounds like a great plan. You seem to be prepared for this. Good luck. And in our defense, when we did their separation in 2011, I'd been there for 7 years, and we had provided complex surgical care not only to children afar in Saint Vincent and other programs, but back in Richmond. I mean, we averaged 36 children a year that would come up to Richmond and be cared for at the Children's Hospital Richmond at VCU. Cardiac kids, congenital problems with neurosurgical, craniofacial, urology, other pediatric surgical complex cases. And we'd often work together as a team, sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 services in caring for a child with a complex gastric mass or something. And so we had that experience of multidisciplinary care for complex surgical problems for some time. And even before I came back in 2004, the institution had a commitment to providing care to children from afar. And so with that experience and the detailed plan that we had really put together, everyone said, you really seem like you got things under control. Best of luck. No one offered to take them. And again, even though some institutions have a bit more experience with conjoined twins, they're all different. And
were they sharing any organs?
Oh, yes. Yeah. A lot of the liver, intestine, the pancreas, bile ducts. It was pretty complex. So many had cared for conjoined twins, but they're all different. Some were neurosurgical team, some it was pediatric surgery, some it was other services, and they're all different. And so no one really said, oh, I've done 4 or 5 of these. I'm happy to take them on and send them up. And so we met and decided that we were as prepared as anybody. Because of their anatomy, it's complex, but how their intestines were conjoined and so forth, one was getting very little nutrition, and most of the nutrition was going to the other one because of the vasculature, the blood vessels in the liver, and so one was eating all the time because she was becoming almost malnourished, and the other one, which was about 20% bigger, Teresa was 20% bigger than Maria. She was feeling almost like full all the time, and looked almost like she was, after a Thanksgiving meal or something, and so she really wasn't thriving. And in fact, Maria was eating so much because she wasn't getting much of the nutrition. It was going through her stomach into the small bowel and crossing over into Teresa, and Teresa was vomiting out all this food. And their size discrepancy was getting more severe over time. And so, whereas to some extent you don't have to separate all conjoined twins, it became very apparent that there was going to be continued problems. And of course, the mom really said, I want these girls to be able to dance independently and ride bikes and so forth. And so we decided to move forward with the separation.
So they're tweens now, aren't they? They would be tweens at this point?
No, they're teenagers.
Teenagers.
I mean, they are pushing 15, 16 years of age. Yeah.
And I'm sure thriving and doing well.
Yes.
That is just incredible. It's just such a fascinating dynamic that I know people...
Yeah, it was quite a story back.
Just extraordinary. Of the locations that you've been, when you said when you were in Michigan, you got to go to Nicaragua and places, and then with World Pediatrics you've gone, where do you feel an affinity? And, we don't want to say favorite or, I'm sure everything is rewarding, but what locale has an affinity for you, whether it's the people or the type of work or?
Well, certainly I've been going to Saint Vincent for over 20 years and I guess right at 20 years. Just love the people there, not only in the hospital, but out of the hospital. The families are exceptionally appreciative, just really sweet people, and certainly have been able to help really inspire some of the people. There's the one pediatric surgeon there really became inspired to go into surgery because she was a medical resident many years ago, and every year we'd come back on trips, and she said, I want to do pediatric surgery. She ended up going to Cuba and doing a pediatric surgery fellowship for 4 years. Left her husband and 2 sons back in Saint Vincent. Would visit maybe once a year. Got her training, and now has been back for 6 or so years, and is the pediatric surgeon in Saint Vincent and providing exceptional care and supporting the teams that come down. Not only our team, a couple teams at times will go down a year for pediatric general surgery, but she'll support the urology team, the neurosurgery team, the plastics team, and supporting them as well. So, and we're continuing to shift more towards teaching them how to fish, not just fishing for them. So we'll continue to build the program, build resources, train her and others on how to care for children. So that's got a special place in my heart. But also Belize. I went to Belize for a number of years, and incredible people there as well, and created an amazing program there. I ended up handing that trip over to one of my colleagues, Dr. Patty Lanning, who's amazing. And she's been going now for 10 years or so. And I don't think they want me back. They're keeping her because she's an exceptional surgeon and human being. But I shifted to try to set up a program in the Dominican Republic for children that have damaged esophagus from caustic congestions and so forth. And have continued to work through that. But certainly Belize and St. Vincent are probably my closest to my heart.
Do you get free time, fun time? What does Dr. Lanning like to do for fun? To fill, I mean, I know helping people fills your well, of course, but what are some hobbies outside of that charge your battery?
Race cars. I guess you maybe heard that. Yeah. So that's, believe it or not, that's what charges my batteries.
We've got we have tracks nearby, don't we? Like within an hour or so, don't we?
A couple hours. Virginia International Raceway is an amazing track. Summit Point, just past Winchester. Probably the 2 most common tracks.
Is there anything about the skill of looking ahead and maintaining control of the vehicle? I mean, are there any parallels to what you do in your doctor work?
Yeah.
Or
Well, it is funny you say that. I mean, certainly there's some commonalities in terms of trying to be efficient at what you do and thoughtful, and it does take, I think, some degree of, if you want to call it, courage or insanity to really push things, whether you're caring for a child with a complex problem in a limited resource country from afar with no one else around to help you, or racing a car on the track as fast as possible with other cars. There are some similarities for sure.
It's focus.
Focus and commitment, yeah, and practice and pushing the limits a bit, yeah.
Let's talk about the relationship with World Pediatrics. Well, and also, I just realized, the Patty going down now, and these other doctors. I love that World Pediatrics is the impetus for people wanting to better themselves too. That just kind of rose and hit me that, and then this surgeon down there who was willing to be away from her family in the grand scheme of things for these brief periods of time because she knew that would be greater for her community and her life and benefiting that ripple effect. Every episode, I just hear more and more often the impact. It's just so amazing.
Yeah. It's certainly very fulfilling. And, I can't emphasize enough how sad, I guess, fills our tanks, how important it is to me and many of my surgical colleagues to do trips like this, care for children like this. One of our surgeons, Gary Ty, neurosurgeon, and Jennifer Rhodes, plastic surgeon, I was just talking to him yesterday. There's a picture of him giving this young girl a huge hug in the clinic. She had a really complex craniofacial problem that they've been caring for I think 7-8 years. And someone sent me a picture of them seeing her in the clinic, and he is giving her this huge hug, picking her up. And so I've got an order in to make some prints for them, and I'm going to frame them to get them to, because I know how important it is, to them, providing care to these children that again, otherwise wouldn't get it.
And being able to capture that moment in time. Oh, I love it. And reliving it. VCU has been partnering with World Pediatrics since the very beginning. How has that evolved over time, and how has the bridge work evolved for the hospital itself?
Well, as I mentioned, it's important for my partners, myself, and many of my colleagues, but almost all the learners now, residents coming in, medical students, junior faculty, are having more and more of an interest in global health, global surgery, so it's really great that now they can be exposed to these children that come up for this complex care and potentially start doing trips themselves and becoming engaged. A lot of faculty that I just interviewed someone from Mass General who is a surgeon there at Harvard, and she's going to Africa, I think, next week, and she is considering taking a job here because of our commitment, VCU and Children's Hospital of Richmond's commitment to global health and caring for children, and she'd love to be part of this and World Pediatrics. And again, it's really been an amazing partnership. Even right before I started with them, with John Ward and others, it's a special organization, a special hospital that is willing to bring up 36 children a year that really don't have the resources to pay and to provide this care. We're the institution's committed, no question, to caring for any and all, regardless of the ability to pay, locally, regionally, and from afar, which is really unique. Mm. I remember a few years ago, 10, 12 years ago, I reached out to this well-known hospital in another state because they had a transplant surgeon that provided this unique operation, a vascular operation, a bypass operation in the abdomen for children that had a special problem with their liver. And I was stunned by the fact that he said, well, we can only do about one or two of these patients' charity cases a year. This is $1 billion+ children's hospital, and it just blew me away. So we actually made arrangements. He was going to come to Richmond. We were going to bring this child here, and I think I got him privileges for the day through the Virginia Board of Medicine, believe it or not, somehow. And he was going to help me do this operation in Richmond. And unfortunately, the child got sicker, and I think ended up somehow crossing the border and ended up in California. And I'm not sure what happened to the child, but anyway, it's a very unique partnership that we have between two amazing organizations to provide this care for children.
Well, it's that backing. So a couple of things. I love the idea that World Pediatrics went from probably this thing where if you're in a hospital, there's a doctor who's kind of associated it and they fill you in and it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then the turning point where it's so well known that now when people come in, they're already asking about it and want to be a part of it. I think that's absolutely amazing they were able to do that in a couple of decades. But then, yes, when these hospitals, whether they have budgetary limitations or not, mm-hmm. or if they just don't even know that it can be done, yeah. I love that World Pediatrics is supporting it enough that we can break people out of their molds that they're this is what we do, their rote routine. I love that World Pediatrics and the people in it and their awareness can break people out of that.
Yeah. I mean, you allude to the fact that there's a lot of challenges being in healthcare and financial, headwinds and so forth. But yet, the Children's Hospital of Richmond and VCU have been committed to continuing this care. I mean, we continue on a daily basis bringing children up for complex stuff, a variety of things, cardiac cases. They just did a spine case not too long ago, and a child that otherwise would have probably died in the upcoming future. And so, incredible work for sure.
So, how do you think these global services matter so much for an academic medical center, mm-hmm. not just clinically, but culturally as well?
Well, I think, as I alluded to, new faculty that are considering learners that want to do residency programs here and so forth, if they see that our commitment truly is to care for any and all, including those with complex problems from afar, I think that says a lot about the organization and the people that are here. And again, the things that they'll be exposed to, will be special, and so it's a win-win for everybody.
I think it gives everybody a sense of anything is possible. Isn't that incredible?
Right.
And of course, just the way we communicate globally now, of course, as quickly as we can. But I think I just can't imagine anybody saying it's not possible or pushing it all. It just, that anything is possible attitude, I think would be the greatest reward and benefit to it all.
That's right.
Absolutely. So when you think about the next generation, as we talked about people coming in already knowing about the program, what gives you the most hope about more and more people knowing about World Pediatrics and them expanding and entering yet another decade?
Well, I think that it's becoming more and more clear over the last 10 plus years about the need for children across many countries, low and middle income countries, that don't have access to surgical care, anesthesia, and so forth. And the morbidity, the illnesses that this cause and the mortality is pretty staggering. And there are many other hospitals that I think would be willing. I mean, St. Louis, we've, as you know, have an amazing office there in St. Louis, and that medical community, philanthropic community, has grown, incredibly and is doing incredible work. And so, really, it's we think we can maybe take this special sauce, if you will, and match up the need with medical communities and cities across the country that want to engage in this work and realize how important it is to those families and patients, but also our teams, and how it can be so rewarding, fulfilling. So, and again, like I said, so many young people now want to be involved with surgical, global surgery, global health, and there's an opportunity and a need to do that.
It's really nice that it's shaping early in their career rather than when they feel they're older and they have the time. I like that World Pediatric is making it approachable and available to them from the get-go.
Right.
That's amazing as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today, Dr.
Sure,
Lanning.
Reese,
Thank
a pleasure
you
to chat with
so
you.
much.
Yeah.
Have fun out there on the track. We'll leave you with Box.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much.
Oh, this has been Healing Beyond Borders. I'm Reese Williams. Tune in next time for our next episode as we continue to dig in to the 25th anniversary of World Pediatrics. If you're in the Richmond, Virginia area, join World Pediatrics on June 6th for Rock and Heal, featuring Future Birds live at the National. It's a night of incredible music for an even greater cause. Tickets go on sale March 4th, so get yours before they sell out. Follow us on social media for instructions on how to get your tickets and more information about the event.